I had two cranial aneurysms, and they literally had to take the top of my head off. I mean, they take a saw and they cut your head off and go in to find the artery that is, one was leaking, the other that hadn't before it burst.
I got hairy legs that turn turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again.
We're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah.
And the reality is this.
Elected the highest ranking black Indian with Indian background woman in American history to be vice president.
And the reality is this.
Stand up against the poison of white supremacy as I did my inaugural address to a single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy. And Joan Shanghai, Shanga Koala.
What advice would you give a college student who has struggled with stuttering since he was a young child?
You know, when I was a kid, I talk like that. And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do. Above all, to be there with you. To parents of transgender children, affirming your child's identity is one of the most powerful things you can do to keep them safe and healthy. To any transgender American who's struggling, please know that you're not alone. To parents and children alike, please ask for help and know this, you're so brave, you belong, and we have your back. God bless you all. Be brave. Imagine had the tobacco industry been immune to prostitute being sued. Come on. Awesome. Thank you for your tolerance, for listening to me. And President Zelensky, you have made it clear that he is open to pursuing, well, let me put it this way. He's not open, but you're open to pursuing peace.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, fuck free speech.
Yeah. When we're dead, when people die, and you're sitting here like, well, at least they got to practice their free speech. I'm so sorry about it. Your free speech is not more important than the lives of like black, trans, femmes, and students on this campus. I'm so sorry.
Yes, exactly.
Hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
Love you.
Imagine had the tobacco industry been immune to prostitute being sued. Come on. Awesome.
Can you imagine wanting to go along with a plot for 4 years that would lead towards your presidency just because previous evildoer died or became incapacitated? I tweeted at this woman, "You should become president" in 2017 because I was so impressed with her questioning of Jeff Sessions. I am so stupid.
Race war. Whose team are you on? Black people or white people?
Is there a race war? Did I miss it?
And they literally had to take the top of my head off. I mean, they take a saw and they cut your head off. Saw and they cut your head off and go in to find the artery that is, one was leaking, the other that hadn't before it burst. Some of the bravest and most inspiring people I've ever known.
You're welcome.
Good folks.
Can we take a little video? Hi, Mr. President. It is an honor. France rights are human rights. Oh, it's a video.
Gay news.
Are we topless at the White House?
Thank you for your tolerance, for listening to me.
Solving the problem of structural institutional racism is our recovery.
And the mayor is likening this commission to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that we saw in South Africa.
In recent weeks, South Africa has seen some of its worst violence since the apartheid era.
Domestic violent extremism is our greatest threat right now. And regrettably, we have seen a rise in white supremacy.
Dude, you can't be off on the train, man. You can't be off on the train.
Why?
It's wrong. Smoking is one thing. Jerking off in public, it's wrong.
That's over the line.
My daughter's right here.
Bro.
Come on, man. Keep it to yourself.
The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
Bin Laden was not the first man to bring terror to that section of the city.
Mr. President, do you believe Osama bin Laden's denial that he had anything to do with this?
Congressman Richie Torres tweeting Tuesday night, a first-class raid followed by a first-class resignation. Former Sergeant Ed Mullins, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
I never forgot that. Neither should you.
There's two high-profile murders, including one where an innocent grandmother was struck and killed by a stray bullet in the Bronx Monday night.
It's Chloe.
If I were to say, yes, you can influence me, that would be wrong. That would be very wrong. Because that would be a diminishment of freedom of speech.
But I want to be specific about influencing.
So literally 3 days after she started her position as CEO, I got this for criticizing the vice president. I was kicked off for a week.
I led a meeting where one of my colleagues asked management whether someone was going to have to get shot before we were allowed to take down tweets.
It's more of an open feedback loop for the advertising experts in this room to help develop Twitter into a place where they will be excited about investing more money, product development, ad safety, content moderation. That's what the influence is.
You already know, Joey. Of course not. This is white privilege on steroids.
So don't give us no symbol. I don't know what the hell the fight is about over the Confederate flag. We need to put the American flag down. Who are we fighting today? It's the people that carry the American flag. What flag do the police have? What flag flies over the non-justice department? What flag flies over the White House?
Listen to the way New York won. Leaves out all the details and make sure to find as many excuses to forgive the woman who stabbed a mother today. And there's no easy way to say this, but generally speaking, white people really don't understand that a lot of black people look at a story like that and immediately forgive her, poor thing, what she must be going through to resort to behaving that way.
Arrested a homeless woman after she allegedly stabbed a mother who was pushing her daughter in a stroller in downtown Brooklyn. LaTaisha Lawrence, now charged with attempted murder and assault. Investigators say she got into a verbal dispute with the other woman on Monday afternoon and threatened to harm the child. That girl was not hurt.
You know what? She should have kept my name out of the letter.
You shouldn't have read the letter.
Bitch, you shouldn't
In
have
which I didn't even say anything about you.
If you have something to say about my name was all in the letter.
You backstabbed me. You backstabbed me.
You should backstab.
You backstabbed me.
Anything I gotta say, I say it to anybody's face.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. I'm in yours, but I see you standing in your doorway. If you have so much to say, come say it to me as a woman. Didn't I tell you that the other day?
I heard you open the door
Didn't
the
I
other
tell you
night.
that the other day? But didn't I tell you that the other day?
Ma, it's not even working.
Why does it have to be a fight, Pam? Why can't we
Because
talk?
you shut up, kept my name out of your mouth. But I'm gonna see you. You know I am.
Okay.
By the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded. So let us say, government by the retarded.
All right. I don't know if you saw that battle with the trash can.
Gladden now charged with second-degree murder.
14-year-old Luciano Lewis, 14-year-old Rayshawn Weaver are charged as adults. The suspects tried to rob the 18-year-old on December 11th. Weaver is accused of stabbing her, while Lewis allegedly held her. A 13-year-old boy in custody will be tried as a minor.
In a hallway with that student, suddenly picking him up, violently throwing him not once, twice.
Okay, let me tell you something. Let's get real. Let me go get my people from Mount Vernon.
America is number one on God's list to be destroyed. So if you don't accommodate us and you don't assist us, just watch what our God is going to do to America.
From the Bronx, from Brooklyn, and come up here and terrorize this town to let you see what it's going to be if you don't fix what you done done.
As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
My mother was a beautiful person. She was receiving blessings on blessings these last couple of months until it was just taken away, cold-hearted.
The other just 12 years old. Kate Lewin was shot and killed while eating in a parked car last week in Brooklyn.
There are large donors, corporate donors, that have firsthand experience with an understanding of a kind of reality where there are only torturers and prisoners and maybe executioners, but they're cousins to the torturers. Figure it out, because that's what's happening. That's who they're giving the money to. And that's why law enforcement doesn't care about people being murdered. It's like doctors. How many cancer patients can you care for? But the cancer patients want to tell themselves, want to lie to themselves. They want people to lie to them and pretend that they care. And they have mastered that pretense. That's one way of describing the world. I think people see crime on TV and they think that it's somehow been settled or taken care of. And it connotates the victims are, being looked after. But it's not. Imagine going through that and nobody cares. Imagine getting backed in the head like that and nobody cares.
Forward about sexual harassment,
Not even by a
retaliation,
criminal,
and
but by a
stereotyping.
cop.
James says the coalition will use all of its authority to investigate these claims.
Range in age from 11 to 14. They were just kids being kids.
And the reality is this.
12 years old. Cops say they were among a group of 6 friends riding in a car when 3 of them turned on the others and shot them dead.
They were just kids being kids.
A 12-year-old just arrested for murder is marched shirtless and in cuffs to a waiting car.
And the reality is this.
He's 17. The pair were charged with the slaying of 3 teens at Ocala National Forest.
And the reality is this.
Police are also searching for a third suspect, aged 16. One victim, 16-year-old Layla Silvernail, was found shot on the side of the road. The next day, a 17-year-old boy was also found dead half a mile away.
That's my family. We don't like each other very much. Oh, I'm okay with that. But it breaks my mother's heart.
That was the craziest, most unhelpful press conference.
But Fox News defended him.
He spoke out, and I think he spoke for America.
They took a life without thought.
And the reality is this.
We're going to stay with our efforts to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
We will not waver from our commitment to support Ukraine as long as it takes.
We will continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
You're already north of $15 billion in terms of those commitments. How far do you go?
As long as it takes.
As long as it takes to do what?
And the reality is this.
Going to look to harm somebody through hate.
Just be grateful that they've left out the killing.
Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance.
And the reality is this. And the reality is this.
Imagine had the tobacco industry been immune to being sued. Come on.
And the reality is this.
We only want supplies. Why are you beating people? At night, the echoes of people crying out from their windows for help.
And the reality is this.
First of all, how does this stuff get on YouTube to begin with? But just.
And the reality is this.
We are scores of magnitude more dangerous on this side of the border than that one. Maybe Mexico should build a wall.
And the reality is this.
I was making a speech, and I had a terrible headache. Excuse me, a terrible headache. And sorry. I had a terrible headache. This is years ago, and I did a very stupid thing.
And the reality is this.
Vote Senator Mack.
And the reality is this.
My freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
And the reality is this.
More than 120 events in the country featuring drag performers have faced targeted threats this year.
The Department of Homeland Security warned the LGBT community is among several groups that could be targeted.
Domestic violent extremism is our greatest threat right now. And regrettably, we have seen a rise in white supremacy.
Protecting life is not their priority, and nor is protecting children.
Some schools, and even a documentary presented by Nickelodeon, are instructing children as young as 8 years old in how to use a condom.
I kind of hope that there will be some parents, some families that decide to allow the bodies of their dead children to be shown to America. So we can't brush it aside.
Councilmember Botcher filmed demonstrators outside Drag Story Hour for neurodiverse children, kids with autism and other disabilities. The New York Public Library says a local drag artist is trained by children's librarians and that they read picture books, do movement activities, and give an age-appropriate introduction to the concept of drag as a form of dress-up and play.
White supremacy is a poison. It's a poison running through it. It really is.
From the Bronx, 2 young children, one just 11 months old, the other 3 years old, are dead this afternoon.
Number 2.
Police say the 2 boys were stabbed to death last night. Their mother, now in police custody.
The idea we still allow semi-automatic weapons to be purchased is sick.
She's never been in trouble before, and obviously this was very distressful. She just wants to be home with her family.
Prosecutors say McLean shipped human skin to this man, Jeremy Pauley of Pennsylvania.
to turn the skin into leather. According to the indictment, the group used PayPal for transactions with labels like Head Number 7 and Brains. Work manager Cedric Lodge is accused of stealing human remains and driving them to his home in New Hampshire, where his wife Denise would sell them, according to prosecutors. Katrina McLean of Massachusetts is one of the accused buyers. Her business, Cat's Creepy Creations, sells creepy dolls and bone art, at one point advertising real human vertebrae on Instagram. Prosecutors say she purchased 2 dissected faces for $600 and visited Harvard Medical School to select body parts she wanted.
Court documents said that she went to the morgue to kind of look at some of these.
Yeah, no comment on that.
Police say a man approached the victim asking for a cigarette before trying to take the bag. When he fought back, the victim was stabbed in the chest.
Tucker, in particular, seems fixated on this anti-queer panic. Yeah, I think that there is a subsector of adults within these organizations. There's nothing sexualized about it, but there's nothing sexualized about it.
2 people were killed when they...
And the reality is this.
She was minding her own business when the kids attacked from behind.
For 8 kids to completely just take away any sort of comfort that I feel walking down the street, it just makes me sick.
Again, we've just confirmed 6 of those kids have been arrested. 5 of them surrendered. The most jarring aspect of this is the youngest, just 11 years old. They range in age from 11 to 14.
They were just kids being kids. And the reality is this.
Answer.
We hope that Minister Wray will have a change of heart.
When was the last time you talked to him?
The last time I talked to him was a couple of months ago. So.
Wow.
I would just point out that that's unanimous consent for documents, and we got the document right here that he handed to you.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent.
The chair now recognizes Ms. Wasserman's
Chairman,
for her 5
I have
minutes.
a unanimous...
Tell me how you analyze a Brady motion.
How I analyze a Brady motion?
Yes.
Senator, in my 4.5 years on the bench, don't believe I've had the occasion to address a Brady motion in my career.
Do you know what a Brady motion is?
Senator, in my time on the bench, I've not had occasion to address that, and so it's not coming to mind at the moment what a Brady motion is.
The path was cleared for me so that I might rise to this occasion. And in the poetic words of Dr. Maya Angelou, I do so now while bringing the gifts my ancestors gave.
And reaching carbon neutrality by 2050.
Can you say more?
Well, we know that thefts and robberies are up about 20% in the first half of this year, so I'm wondering if he thinks America's big cities are safe.
So I'll say this, that same story also stated that the crime is complicated and multifaceted.
Disturbing today, a teenager in New York City riding a scooter, stabbed. This happened in the Bronx. We have the latest on the manhunt to try to find the guy behind this apparently random attack.
Why is the American military shooting something out of the sky over Canada?
Because it's part of NORAD. There is the NORAD is part of like it's a what you call a coalition, a consortium,
a pact of nations.
A pact,
okay.
Exactly. And so that's why we were able to do that. Again, we didn't do it on our own. We did it clearly in step with Canada.
Haitian-born parents who truly has made me who I am.
Fetterman as a nominee at some point for president. I know there's some variables, obviously, but just a few. But I just, what he did in the super red, deep red parts of Pennsylvania, and the way that he ran ahead of Biden, as you were saying, ran ahead of Trump. I mean, it just makes you wonder about his future.
President of the United States of America. Why? We want to know who killed him. Somebody who by the name of Lee Harvey, and then another Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey. Why did he kill him?
So to be clear, white people are not writing a check, though if any white person wants to write me a check, I'll give my Venmo after the talk. But reparations is about a societal debt, and it is paid by the government. It's not about punishing white Americans.
Thank you.
Anybody want my Venmo?
For those of you who don't know, in 1994, in 100 days, 1 million people were massacred. Okay, with machetes. I mean, the story, it was babies and kids and women and children. I mean, it was just, and you'll be, ashamed of your own country. Why didn't we do something when this happened?
If they can make federal laws to protect the bird, which is the bald eagle, then they can make federal laws to protect people of color.
These families described themselves.
I led a meeting where one of my colleagues asked management whether someone was going to have to get shot before we were allowed to take down tweets.
That's how they maintain control.
And when you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do.
When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise. The few Russians who understood what was really going on in the rest of the world had learned about it from listening to shortwave radio broadcasts, sometimes under the covers so the neighbors wouldn't hear. 50 years later, it is bewildering to consider the ironies here. We're the ones who live in ignorance now.
We have even seen Republican members of the Senate insinuate that interracial marriage is something that should be up for debate.
Here's another story about racism. Go eat each other. That's the program. That's how most of us now live here in the United States. Manipulated by lies, silenced by taboos.
And the reality is this.
It is unhealthy and it's dehumanizing, and we're tired of it.
And the reality is this.
We can point to the precise moment that permanent Washington decided to send Donald Trump to prison. Here it is.
We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East. They lied. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right. But it was the next line that doomed Trump to today's arrest. They lied, he said. There were no weapons of mass destruction, and they knew there were none.
John,
Fetterman as a nominee at some point for president. I know there's some variables, obviously, but just a few. But I just,
Shanga Koala.
A mental issue on a train is not to be sentenced with death. You will set a standard of vigilantism that we cannot tolerate. The precedent alone is a threat to all of us.
Detectives and the ME's office still investigating what led up to the death of a 6-year-old girl in the South Bronx. Police responded to the Forest houses in Morrisania on Friday morning after getting a 911 call from the girl's mother. They found Jalea Eason unconscious and unresponsive. She had bruises on her wrist and body, according to police. The girl was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead.
Pratt on piano.
At the end of the month, 2 weeks later, FBI Director Wray met with members of the Congressional Black Caucus when you questioned the methodology of the report and how the FBI actually developed the term black identity extremists.
Now, the second don't I have for you is a bit more serious and has to do with the genocide here. If you don't know, in 1994, 1 million people were massacred and killed here in Rwanda in about 100 days. It's a very horrible, just atrocity that happened here. And the thing is you'll see memorials all around the country. And my don't for this is don't be disrespectful when going to the genocide memorials or talking about the genocide and stuff like that, because it's still a touchy subject. So it's best to kind of avoid that kind of topic. And so I just wanted you to have a heads up for it. Now, I haven't seen anybody doing the selfies at the genocide memorials, thank God, like I've seen in Auschwitz, I've seen at the 9/11, I've seen at the 9/11 memorial and stuff like that. So in general, I found that tourists here are much more respectful. So just make sure that you're being respectful as well, talking about the genocide and stuff like that. Kind of going along with that is don't ask people if they're Hutu or Tutsi or Twa. You don't do that. Actually, you're not even supposed to ask that here in Rwanda, so don't do that.
You told Ray that you can't recommend that black activists who are among your constituents even speak to the FBI because it's unclear where the FBI is coming from.
Yeah, it was a G.I. Jane joke. Keep my wife's name out your...
So what the Congressional Black Caucus is calling for now is for the FBI to set up a meeting between members of the CBC and the people that wrote the document, because nobody can account for this. I mean, in my opinion, just to cut to the chase, I don't believe black identity extremists exists. And I believe that the FBI should retract the document and should send out a document throughout law enforcement saying that black identity extremists do not exist.
You white trashy bitch. How about that? You fucking white trash. You fucking white trashy bitch. That's what the fuck you are. Here we go again. You think you're the only one that got a phone for all of that? Take your phone and go fuck yourself with it. That's what you do, okay? Fixate on your phone. That's what you do.
A Brooklyn man could now face upgraded charges. The city's medical examiner has ruled the death of a 4-month-old girl a homicide. The mother of Royalty Camp says her boyfriend, Ricardo Price, beat her daughter while he was babysitting her. She says it happened after the infant interrupted Price when he was playing video games.
The family is speaking out at the site in Brooklyn where their daughter was shot and killed. Now, it happened while she attended a vigil for a friend who was killed the night before.
It is the only pathway to our recovery. We can't be whole if we don't eradicate the cancer of racism.
People haven't been allowed to state the obvious that no amount of money, no amount of reparations, and just really nobody wants to talk about it because it's just too much. Who wants to talk about people who beat children to death while they're playing their video games? You want to get away from that. So to pretend that that's because of skin color, that is a propaganda that its time has come to be replaced with, when we say hard conversation, we just mean the truth, and everybody's allowed to take a break and not be forced to talk about it. As best I can, I understand the trauma black people have suffered, but not to the point where the 3-year-old is going to drive the bus.
Pretty much ends the violence at that moment. But look at just how disgusting this is to watch. The looting has got...
Specifically, I'm going to lean into the black condition, just for, being a black person. We've been getting killed in hospitals.
A tummy tuck, breast augmentation, and liposuction, all on the same day.
For years, grandmama don't come out. We've been getting killed by police officers, every day. We've been killing each other.
What they've got to do is create an interagency task force that brings in Homeland Security, the Commerce Department, the Justice Department. We have to bring in the State Department.
You're not going to know that the police officers...
And really take a hard look at how we dismantle anti-science empire.
You're not going to know that the police officers, and we're going to see if somebody is going to look to harm somebody through hate.
I mean, the reason Kenneth Bridges and other black people were killed during this spree is it's a cloak.
Ukraine, and we want defeat for Vladimir Putin. Regime change would be great, but we realize that will not happen, but defeat must happen.
We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
She's crazy, yes.
Yeah, she needs to be in another house. Yeah, I know. And I told her face is straight up. But I know, I told her myself.
Thug, ghetto, welfare queen, lazy, race baiter, race grifter, threatening, angry, dangerous. Or you say that we're playing the victim or we are a diversity hire. What you actually mean to say is the N-word.
So after about 16 years of being tortured by these people, they had a wrongful death in their family, got a $10 million award. And the first thing they did with their money after they bought a Lincoln was to come after me and hire attorneys with the condo board to figure out a way to create arrears and $26,000 to have the owner of the apartment kick me out, all because of these videos that I shot. And the only reason I put them up was because, you can see.
How does it affect you? Are the prostitutes, are they committing crimes against you? Probably not. Okay? All the things that you have problems with, where people park, where the firemen park, all these things, ignore them for 30 days.
Where the firemen park? What are you talking about?
One of your videos I watched a couple of years ago was about when the firemen were up there for a fire call, and you started asking them, why do they have to park in these spaces and block these spaces?
That's not what it was. You misunderstood
I'm
that.
not, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
But it does.
But it doesn't matter. No, I just brought that up, but it doesn't matter right now.
Now you're going to shut up and you're listening, all right? You have been told it's a civil matter, okay? They don't make the fines. The people who run this complex make the fines, okay? They're responsible for fining and not fining people. If they find that you're in violation, you get fined. If you have a problem with that, you take it up in small claims court with the building, not individual people who live in here, okay? That's where you're wrong. Now, if you take it and file a claim against Hillcrest Park Management,
He wasn't on the management when
it
it started.
doesn't have nothing to do with management. He's a board member. He's elected by the people who live here.
We have to support the sex workers. We have to do something different. The conception we have in our legal system is broken. We need to change it.
Imagine had the tobacco industry been immune to prostitute being sued. Come on.
If you want to go online and post stuff, that's called cyberbullying.
Oh my God.
Now you are being the bully because now you're posting stuff derogatory about somebody that you're having.
Like I said, recording everything. I got my neighbors as proof. Let's see.
When the men got tired of being rejected, when they would hit on me for years, they finally started saying things like, "You have sex with your dog," amongst other things.
You sleep with your dog. Like, you sleep with your dog. Like,
You know, we're here investigating because we have to, but do you know what I mean? There's much more critical things we need to be doing. Now you're going to shut up and you're listening, all right? You have been told it's a civil matter, okay? They don't make the fines. The people who run this complex make the fines, okay? They're responsible for fining and not fining people. If they find that you're in violation, you get fined. If you have a problem with that, you take it up in small claims court with the building, not individual people who live in here. Okay? That's where you're wrong. Now, if you take it and file a claim against Hillcrest Park Management,
He wasn't on the management when it
it
started.
doesn't have nothing to do with management. He's a board member. He's elected by the people who live here.
The board told us to run a red letter. Recording everything. I got my neighbors as proof. Let's see.
Even the complications of doing so, she needs to be put away. She needs to be she does. Is she what?
That.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna do with it?
I have a top 8 lawyer that will chew you apart. Okay? Ugly.
Wow.
Okay? Ugly.
In the history books, it'll be called the
Okay,
30-year
ugly.
coup.
Well, we got to stay on the street.
And we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
What do you think about this curfew tonight?
Should we have dispensed the trials? We're not going to have a trial. Yeah. Let's just convict him right now. Yeah.
There shouldn't even be a trial. He should be convicted just as is.
Come
upstairs.
They're teams.
What's going on?
Call the cops. They're trying to steal a car. This is my car. He is their car. No, this is my car.
Stop it! Oh my God! Somebody just stole it.
She's stealing their car.
He's stealing the car.
Yeah, we called the cop. Call the cops. Call the cops. It's been called. It's been called. It's been called. It's been called. They stole the car. These girls stole the car. Hey, come out, come out. They stole the car. They stole the car. These girls.
Notice how the soldiers take the girls out of the car, make sure they're okay. But not one person checks on the man who had his car stolen. Just lying there like that. I mean, even if he was obviously dead to them, someone could have comforted him in his last moments. But that's not the society we live in.
Yeah, hey, back up, back up, back up.
So the guy dies on the sidewalk, and here this lady comes out.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice. Because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice.
Not really worried. Too much thinking, it's not good for the brain. Because they're crazy. It's not check nothing.
In the novel 1984.
Was she mistaken? I mean, why is everyone so sure she wasn't being serious? I mean, notice how it goes over everyone's head.
So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring.
In the novel 1984.
It won't work. The city won't work, the country won't work. And this is the moment, that blessed transformational moment. We don't get many of these in our lives, but this is that moment.
In the novel 1984.
Above all, to be there with you. To parents of transgender children, affirming your child's identity is one of the most powerful things you can do to keep them safe and healthy. To any transgender American who's struggling, please know you're not alone. To parents and children alike, please ask for help. And know this, you're so brave, you belong, and we have your back. God bless you all. Be brave.
In the novel 1984.
You're not going to know that the police officers, and we're going to see if somebody is going to look to harm somebody through hate.
In the novel 1984.
We need to help them. We need to end the criminalization of sex workers and put all of the focus on enforcement against those who subjugate them.
In the novel 1984.
Then you'll call the police, right?
If you wear that, I have been advised to call the police if you do not comply with my rules.
In the novel 1984.
And put them in positions of power, and next thing you know, the country does start to disappear. That is a very frightening prospect.
Thank you. More ignoramus behavior and racist anti-Asian rants in Manhattan. Tonight, video of the suspect. New York cops now trying to identify.
Say that racist again. He's like communist China? Well, isn't that where you're from?
In the novel 1984. And comparing it to the Ministry of Truth in the novel 1984. Can you clarify what exactly is this? What exactly will this Disinformation Governance Board do? Will it monitor American citizens?
Dan, I'm very pleased to do so.
So I was basically required to delete my criticism of Mayorkas, and then even a tweet where I wrote to the New York Post, Miranda Devine, I think this is the one, about criticizing Mayorkas, even that one got flagged.
Between the Ukrainian government and the FBI to pressure Twitter to censor from Twitter, from his Substack. There you see the headline, which read, FBI helps Ukraine censor Twitter users and obtain their info, including journalists. And it describes how the FBI and the Ukrainians were pressuring Twitter, giving Twitter a list of people that they wanted censored on the grounds that they were spreading disinformation, meaning they were insufficiently supportive of the Ukrainian narrative, questioning Ukraine's claims about the war itself. And one of the people on the list was Aaron Mate himself. So we're going to try and get him back on in order to speak to us about this reporting and a couple of other articles he published this week. Let's just take a quick...
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are down.
It's the best money we've ever spent. Thank you so much.
No, it's...
A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters.
It's really, really chilling. And about a half a dozen others also to Stacey Plaskett about Kamala Harris, Max Rose, Austin, General Austin, West Bellamy from Charlottesville, government-related officials, all of them flagged, or I was, put in Twitter jail. Oh, and this one from it was a reply to something Snowden tweeted, indecent or something about nudity. It was like they didn't even have a category. And then just last week, I've been given a week for this tweet. Can you imagine wanting to go along with a plan for 4 years that would lead towards your presidency based on the previous guy dying? I got flagged for that. And if it's because I said what a whore in passing, or I tweeted at this whore that she should be president. I mean, you're having a conversation with other people, and for our government to say, oh, don't you dare call her a whore. And obviously nobody thinks she's a prostitute. This one, I called this man a whore, an applause whore, because he loved, listening to the audience cheer him on. And I just pointed it out. It's with Bill Maher. Does anyone think Bill Maher hasn't used the word whore? And nobody is using it in, calling him a prostitute. It's just, I shouldn't have to explain myself, right? And so to just be cut out of that just 3 days after the new CEO is really disheartening. The idea that they would call that hateful conduct because I'm criticizing, an obviously sleazy bunch of people who've taken over our government. Will I be, reprimanded for this? People have abused my rights this way for my entire adult life, and I always thought I was just unlucky. But it's becoming clear that this is how most people are. It's like they have a gene for totalitarianism. I grew up in a classic borderline Marxist liberal town, Croton-on-Hudson, and Peekskill next door was always, we were made to feel guilty because, they were just known as kind of a poor black community and back in the day, and always felt guilty about that. It's not until you actually live there that you realize, quote unquote racism has little to do with skin color, and that there are real issues and problems that never get addressed just because it's really hard to even have a conversation with it.
Terrified by the prospect of another day of bullying, last week, Lucas died by suicide. His father says he had tried to get the school to intercede, but they would not. at least not effectively. And so many in the district, look at the line of people who wanted to speak tonight, say they had similar experiences.
Look, and you didn't have 5 minutes. Look, I don't know how you can see. I don't know how.
So when I moved to Peekskill in 2001, I applied for a job with the Peekskill City Schools. Never even got a call back. But my neighbor, she was hired. She had a record, not just a record, but murdered her own 3-year-old, bludgeoned to death by her boyfriend, burst spleen. The only reason I Googled her name was because she had threatened to punch me down the stairs. I have that on tape. I never left my apartment without recording. I was constantly being threatened this way. And they would call the police and make the police think I had somehow instigated. It was hell. But the point is, even though I saw this newspaper article, I still went to the trouble of paying $25 and foiling for some, courts transcripts so I could, know for sure exactly what happened. Because I'm still even thinking, give her the benefit of the doubt. Because that's the kind of person I am. That's the kind of teacher I would have made. That's the kind of influence I might have had in a child's life if they had hired me. Whether it's a lunch lady or a substitute teacher. They never even called me back, but they hire someone who murdered her baby. Take a listen to this woman's grown daughter. The murder was in 1987, so it was a long time ago, but nevertheless, she's still threatening people, right? This is her daughter. She had like 3 kids after this one. And the neighbor who was a pimp in the apartment on the other side of me. And he's joking around about practicing his torture techniques on mice and winking at her that, it's about me. You have to be, live there to get that. But just listen for a second. It's just 22 seconds.
I don't like them. Oh, God.
Why do that? I'm taking practice so that it's not working live, motherfuckers. Get it? Let me know.
All right. Thank you.
Terminated.
Bryson, thank you. Police now have a person in custody this afternoon after an early morning double shooting in Peekskill. Gunfire erupted behind a building on South Street, and a man and woman were shot while sitting in a car.
I just found this old stuff that I made a website in like 2003. When I first moved here, I took all these pictures, set up like a restaurant hub, message boards, real estate links, all this stuff. It's actually 2002 or 2003 maybe. And I made all of these graphics, and I did it all for free. Sent them a link for it at like the Lou at VIP at the the management company. Their response was to threaten me $20 a day fine if I didn't get rid of my dog.
Lucas's father now just wants change.
I had nothing to lose. My son's gone. So the only what I want right now is some justice for another kids.
Parents all say that when they bring concerns about bullying to the attention of administrators, that nothing is done, that they are ignored. So it surprised no one tonight when so many parents and students spoke about bullying, and members of the Board of Education said nothing.
After 16 years of being gaslit by poor black neighbors, there wasn't even a word. I didn't know the word gaslighting until, a few years ago when everyone started using it, but...
She didn't want to give it to Alex because I'm black. She didn't want to give it to black people.
Did you really just say that? Did you just say I don't want to give it to you because you're black?
Who you talking to?
But I know who you are. Horse-headed bitch. You couldn't even go to school, but put your ass out.
You're not going to know that the police officers.
In case I forget to stick the recordings I have of my neighbors saying things like, you sleep with your dog, you have sex with your dog. Dolores also, in the midst of this rant somewhere, says, that's what you keep your stupid ducking fucking dog for. You want me to get you a man? I'll go get you a man.
What you can do? I can do anything I want. Because my dog tried to bite me, so now I'm gonna let you know you got to get rid of that mother. Okay? That's what I want to know. Your dog got to go. And if your dog don't go, you go. Hey, what's up?
Imagine the mayor of a city or town saying to you, I hope you have trouble sleeping.
I don't give a fuck. You can't call the cops for shit. You're a crazy bitch. Get the fuck away from my door. Simple as that. There ain't shit to talk about. Get the fuck away from my door. You're a crazy bitch. Recording everything.
I don't want to get at you because you're black. You were speaking to me.
Okay, so whatever you want to roll with it.
Now my white friends are finally seeing themselves.
Whatever they want to do, let yourself be gaslit and swallow your pride.
You kiss my black ass, you ugly bitch.
That's what it is. It's like you don't even want to talk to it. There's nothing, just get away from it. And it's totally understandable. And I'm just a flawed human being. And the idea that even my, white counterparts in Croton, if I tried to talk about this, they looked at me like I'm the lowlifes down on Bank Street or whatever, sounding like a racist. Like, no, I am allowed to talk about my life experience. And they didn't want to hear it. And now the idea that you are unable to freely try to express yourself in social media is just, it's beyond heartbreaking.
To really build a global grassroots movement to fight against the censorship industrial complex.
I've been thinking.
It's important to note that to support a woman's ability, not her government, but her, to make that decision does not require anyone to abandon their faith or their beliefs.
And I'll never forget this black man raising his hand and saying,
Bitch, don't you ever talk to a motherfucking pep like that, bitch. Disrespect a motherfucking man. Man, check your bitch.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent. Thank you so much.
No, it's...
We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens.
And we're on day 167 of girlhood.
Mr. Hollywood, I'm right here.
Hollywood, zoom in on...
Nobody knows what's happening.
You're not going to know that the police officers.
Then you'll call the police, right?
If you wear that, I have been advised to call the police if you do not comply with my rules.
So sweaty, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. You have inspired so many people, showing the courage and the dignity and the grace. And then for you to be back on the court is so incredible.
That's right.
And for all the people that look like us and need to know nothing is going to knock you down, that's good. That's real good.
That means a lot.
Thank you for all that you did in supporting Brittany. Because I know that was rough and that was so difficult for you. A team is a team, that's family.
On behalf of the W and the players, tonight is a game, but we're also celebrating the return of one of our own, and what the Biden administration did to make that happen is like really, really important. I'm serving as the president of our union, and it was not easy. We know that it wasn't easy, but we just want to say thank you so much for everything that you did for us to be able to play against BG tonight.
You and the union, the members, were such an important partner to us in being able to bring her home. You all made a huge difference, and I thank you for that. Thank you. Thank
you. Not only was Ukraine and the FBI jointly seeking to censor users on Twitter, they were actually seeking user data as well.
And comparing it to the Ministry of Truth in the novel 1984. Can you clarify what exactly is this? What exactly will this Disinformation Governance Board do? Will it monitor American citizens?
Dan, I'm very pleased to do so.
If I planted a piece of information with a reporter, I would ordinarily then try to create an environment in which he could not check the information. I would go to the British ambassador and brief him on the disinformation I had just given the reporter. So when the reporter wanted to cross-check what I'd told him with, say, the British ambassador, New Zealand ambassador, or what have you, he would get false confirmation, the same message coming back at him, and he'd say, aha, I've got proof that Frank Snepp told me the truth, when in fact, what he'd gotten was simply an echo of what I'd given him in the first place.
You know, and you haven't stood alone. And President Zelensky, you have made it clear that he is open to pursuing, well, let me put it this way, he's not open, but you're open to pursuing peace. He wanted to see the, Europe end up being divided.
It is obvious that American business can become the locomotive that will once again push forward global economic growth. We have already managed to attract attention and have cooperation with such giants of the international financial and investment world as BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. Such American brands as Starlink or Westinghouse have already become part of our Ukrainian way.
Why is the American military shooting something out of the sky over Canada?
Because it's part of NORAD. There is the NORAD is part of like it's a what you call a coalition, a consortium,
a pact of nations.
A pact,
okay.
Exactly. And so that's why we were able to do that. Again, we didn't do it on our own. We did it clearly in step with Canada.
Right now, fewer than 6% of doctors in the U.S. identifies Black or African American. That's despite the fact that the community makes up 12% of the country's total population, and that's raising concerns about the impact on public health.
So when I met Dr. Allen, I told her that in a very short time my health was deteriorating, and if she had seen me a year and a half before, she wouldn't have recognized me. So I showed her a picture. She didn't believe that it was me. And she writes this report as if I am this insane, crazy, annoying white lady with a hoarding problem who, thinks she's pre-diabetic because a doctor told her she was. And I mean, it's like, I don't want to say hateful, but almost. The conversation is very scattered, including showing me a picture of a female floating on a raft in a pool, which she states is her. I have trouble accepting. So she thinks I'm showing her a picture of someone else. I showed her a picture of myself at peak health. Well, whatever peak health is, but I was very healthy. I had an accident, and within a year, maybe almost 2 years, year and a half, my health just deteriorated. I got some strange lesions on my skin. I told her other doctors had told me I was pre-diabetic. And the point is she's writing this as if I'm a whiny white lady. And that's exactly how she always made me feel. But because of my upbringing and my training, let's call it, my ideological training, it was ingrained in me to not see color. And even though it was blaring, like right in my face, she would roll her eyes at me. And she retired actually, but I stuck with her for a few years. I just, she was inept. She would say, if she was talking about orthopedics, she would use a word like gastro. And even I know, I can recognize that. I mean, she would fuck things up all the time. She misdiagnosed me. She might have cost me some time where I should have. I showed her something on my breast that was an alarming, like this crater. And she said, "Oh, that's nothing." And I mean, anyway.
Research shows that when we have a more diverse physician workforce, there's more understanding and more trust between the patient and the doctor. The doctor has an understanding of the patient's cultural experiences, cultural background, lived experiences, especially when it comes to racism or discrimination or other aspects of their life. That can help with that physician-patient relationship.
Mr. Washington, can you quickly tell me what airspace requires an ADS-B transponder? Quickly, please.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Not sure I can answer that question right now.
So what are the 6 types of special use airspace that protect this national security that appear on FAA charts? Quickly, please.
Sorry, Senator, I cannot answer that question.
So what are the operational limitations of a pilot flying under basic med?
Well, thank you for the question, Senator. I'm not a pilot.
Can you tell me what causes an aircraft to spin or to stall?
Again, Senator, I'm not a pilot.
So can you tell me what the minimum separation distance is for landing and departing airliners during the daytime, Mr. Washington?
I don't want to guess on that, Senator.
We see American white people are going crazy. They're resorting to violence.
This is literally what conservative white folks do when they don't get their way. They turn violent.
I don't think it's our responsibility to be tasked with destroying and dismantling the racial oppression that's against us. That's just saying we're more at fault than the white people who constructed this system and the white people who continue to practice institutional racism.
This country was built on the idea that white men had a particular kind of freedom and a particular kind of citizenship that only they have, that gives, from the slave catchers on, the right to inflict violence in the name of protecting property.
And regrettably, we have seen a rise in white supremacy.
Scrutiny at that. Take, for example, as you point out, that disgusting incident that happened in St. Louis yesterday outside the Globe building. In a video posted online, you see a guy by the name of Deshaun Thomas. He stands behind a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk, calmly loads his weapon and shoots him at point-blank range. Witnesses suggest that the pair may have been fighting outside of a Shell gas station up the block moments earlier. Thomas was arrested a short time later at a library, though it's unclear if he was out on probation at the time or if he has a long rap sheet, probably, but we'll have to wait and see.
And gotaways have been a challenge.
From the beginning, yeah.
From the beginning.
But that matches your numbers roughly?
I believe so.
Matches his numbers, which are absolutely staggering. That number, those numbers of people who've been released in the first 3 months of 2021 and 2022, that's more than the population of Boston, Seattle, Denver, DC, Detroit, Baltimore, all released.
Race war. Whose team are you on? Black people or white people?
Is there a race war? Did I miss it?
The white people. The white people.
And the mayor is likening this commission to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that we saw in South Africa.
In recent weeks, South Africa has seen some of its worst violence since the apartheid era.
If the police could recognize that, look, black people call the police more than any other group.
Because he called the authorities, he got his story in first. That's how you play these things, to try to get in as least trouble, the smallest amount of trouble possible.
Oh, God.
And comparing it to the Ministry of Truth in the novel 1984. Can you clarify what exactly is this? What exactly will this Disinformation Governance Board do? Will it monitor American citizens?
Dan, I'm very pleased to do so.
Exploiting people's fear and anxiety. What he's doing is he's possibly going to cause a civil war in this country. And I don't necessarily mean a violent one. That certainly can happen. Actually, I think we're in the middle of one right now where we can't agree on anything.
Nobody knows what's happening.
And we talk about race. We're going to dig in a little bit more deeper, really deep into that, all of it tonight. But I want to talk to you about the turmoil in the royal family, okay?
We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens.
You will never see me fly an American flag, let's be clear.
If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain control.
The white people. The white people.
There are plenty of stories about everyday racism from the perspective of the Black experience.
With a special ed class, you telling me that you was special ed when you was in high school? Motherfucker. And I know when you went to school, because you went with my sister, your little special ed case.
It's not about race. It's not about race.
I know when you fucking went to school. I ain't never told nobody about your state ass. But I know who you are. Poor ass bitch. You couldn't even go to school, but put your ass out.
Give black people their rights, or we will burn this country to ashes.
I mean, why couldn't they just take the stuff and just be done? Why did I have to burn? All my memories, all my children's photographs, everything is gone.
White, black, white, black, white, black.
In recent weeks, South Africa has seen some of its worst violence since the apartheid era.
Like honestly, because we can't say it's politics. This is not politically affiliated to nobody, ne?
Just trying to make sense of it all, you know, that whole unit, all our albums, all our photo albums, all our kids' history, the drawings, the painting.
On behalf of the wickedness of your people, white people, for the evil that you have done.
This is what we need to do. Yes, boycott them. And especially and specifically, boycott their holidays. Listen, people. Now, I know your kids may be used to Christmas, but you can tell your children, you know, they can celebrate anytime they want. They can get gifts and toys or whatever anytime they want. They do not have to celebrate December 25th when the Europeans dictate for you to spend your money and go out and buy things so they can get rich off of your backs.
She didn't want to give it to Allie because I'm black. She don't want to give it to black people.
Did you really just say that? Did you just say I don't want to give it to you because you're black?
Who are you talking to?
And coming up with solutions to some of the challenges that we're being met with.
But I know who you are. Poor ass bitch. You couldn't even go to school, but put your ass out.
Some clergy members say criminals also have no respect for authority.
You're not going to know that the police officers.
In case I forget to stick the recordings I have of my neighbors saying things like, you sleep with your dog, you have sex with your dog. Dolores also, in the midst of this rant somewhere, says, that's what you keep your stupid fucking dog for. You want me to get you a man? I'll go get you a man.
What you can do? I can do anything I want. Because her dog tried to bite me. So now I'm going to let her know you got to get rid of that mother. Okay? That's what I want to let her know. Your dog got to go. And if your dog don't go, you go.
Hey, what's up? So it's like they put you on a list. So if I compare my tweet, literally something personal, an example of a small city turning on an individual where the building department is spitting on them, where they're being kicked out of their home. I mean, talking about how people treat each other. For example, at the same time, this was an advertisement that was in my feed, a Honda commercial. You know, it's like borderline pornography. And the irony that I can't just share a little anecdote that nobody's probably going to read anyway. Just an intelligent conversation is something they flag. And I'm not saying this should be flagged, but, you know, it's definitely in poor taste. And this is the kind of thing that's okay with everybody, really. And even just for suggesting to another stranger that maybe people should keep track of all of the tweets that are flagged erroneously. And they're all government related, by the way. A tweet about a mayor who told me he hopes I have trouble sleeping at night. How is that different than what we accuse Putin of? Question mark. Imagine the mayor of a city or town saying to you, I hope you have trouble sleeping.
I don't give a fuck. You can't call the cops for shit. You a crazy bitch. Get the fuck away from my door. Simple as that. There ain't shit to talk about. Get the fuck away from my door. You a crazy bitch. Recording everything.
I don't want to give it to you because you're black. You were speaking to me.
Okay, so whatever you want to roll with it.
Now my white friends are finally seeing themselves.
Whatever they want to do, let yourself be gaslit and swallow your pride.
You kiss my black ass, you ugly bitch.
Then you'll call the police, right?
If you wear that, I have been advised to call the police if you do not comply with my rules.
Well, it started out politically, but then after that, people just did it stupidly.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
No, it's...
But go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens.
Domestic violent extremism is our greatest threat. Our greatest threat right now, and regrettably we have seen a rise in white supremacy.
White supremacy is a poison. It's a poison running through it. It really is.
There's nothing sexualized about it, but there's nothing sexualized about it.
You have a governor from Tennessee has decided to go after drag shows. What sense does that make, to go after drag shows? The governor himself hasn't been able to, if you think about this particular issue, he hasn't been able to cite any examples, anything to show that drag shows in public spaces are a problem. These ridiculous policies aren't just unnecessary, they are dangerous. It's completely unacceptable for a governor to be moving in this way, to be with such a bill, and it is also unfortunate.
So is the binder now pro-kiddie drag show? Like we just showed you? Is the Democratic National Convention going to open up with kiddie drag shows? But by the way, the shows we just showed you are outside of the classroom, and parents are taking their own kids to these shows, so that's on them and the performers. But it's also happening in our school libraries too.
Tucker Carlson, let's get it out. Let's get it out at trial. Let's expose it for what it is, name it and shame it. He's a consumer of these people, and those people should face civil consequences from the victims.
The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet.
I had 2 cranial aneurysms, and they literally had to take the top of my head off. I mean, they take a saw and they cut your head off and go in to find the artery that is, one was leaking, the other that hadn't before it burst. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. We're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah.
What advice would you give a college student who has struggled with stuttering since he was a young child?
You know, when I was a kid, I talk like that.
Does Joe Biden have some sort of, mental incapacity? I don't know, but they also give, elderly people in the retirement homes ice cream as well, and he seems to always eat ice cream, so they give him a lot of protocols. No, I'm serious, but they give him a lot of protocols as if he is an elderly patient. So I don't know.
Here's what drives the driver in the states that are affected.
This is my message from earth to come. On behalf of we,
a solid meeting with they make a very good point. Here's the deal.
Look, I'm asking you to understand that. There's been criticism trying to compromise by your family's business relationships. Sir, Mr. President, there is
Give me a break, man.
Did you overreact?
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
Joe Biden's decline is taking center stage for all the world to see.
He will be 86 years old at the end of his second and last term.
Judge me on my merit, not on my age.
When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise.
Domestic violent extremism is our greatest threat right now. And regrettably, we have seen a rise in white supremacy.
The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
And we're on day 167 of girlhood.
Mr. Hollywood, I'm right here.
Hollywood, zoom in on
this. And tonight in newly released 911 calls, we hear her say that she had an altercation with that mother's children, and then the mother came to her door.
Oh my God, this lady just trying to break down my door. I didn't know what to do with that. My God, I just saw at the door.
The one sitting on the stairs hit my door so hard it was like practically coming off. I had to hold it back.
What you gonna do? I can do anything I want. Because her dog tried to bite me, so now I'm gonna let her know you got to get rid of that mother. Okay? That's what I want to know. Your dog got to go. And if your dog don't go, you go.
Police say Lawrence then fired a single shot through her locked front door, shooting that mother in the chest and killing her.
Domestic violent extremism is our greatest threat right now.
Don't, bitch! I will shove that thing so far down your motherfucking throat. You are lying. I never sold anything out of my apartment ever.
Oh, really?
No. I
Because I spent
I
the
sell
test.
pussy.
Because I spent
I
the
sell
test.
pussy. She ain't scared no more. She ain't scared no more.
And no emotional capacity to withstand how uncomfortable the conversation is. And that means Black people can't be their authentic selves with us.
I don't give a fuck. You can't call the cops for shit. You a crazy bitch. Get the fuck away from my door. Simple as that. There ain't shit to talk about. Get the fuck away from my door. You crazy bitch. Recording everything.
With many left helpless by South Africa's failing economy and corrupt government.
A Brooklyn man could now face upgraded charges. The city's medical examiner has ruled the death of a 4-month-old girl a homicide. The mother of Royalty Camp says her boyfriend, Ricardo Price, beat her daughter while he was babysitting her. She says it happened after the infant interrupted Price when he was playing video games. City education officials.
2 robberies. This is surveillance video of one of the early morning robberies in Chelsea. In both incidents, the victims had just left restaurants and were walking down the street. when a black Mercedes-Benz pulls up. Police say the suspects got out of the car and robbed their victims at gunpoint. They took several chains, necklaces, rings, and watches and then drove off. No one was hurt in either robbery. In Westchester County.
But what if you could just give us feedback on our inevitable and often unaware racist assumptions and
dirty, poor white bitch.
Black people can't be their authentic selves with us.
Don't snap. Y'all calling the police. No. She gonna call them on me, because I'm already not gonna
and comparing it to the Ministry of Truth in the novel 1984. Can you clarify what exactly is this? What exactly will this Disinformation Governance Board do? Will it monitor American citizens?
Dan, I'm very pleased to do so. Dan, I'm very pleased to do so.
And I'll never forget this black man raising his hand and saying,
Bitch, don't you ever talk to a motherfucking step like that. Bitch, disrespect a motherfucking man. Man, check your bitch before I stop.
And you know, just take that in. I just want all the white people to just take that in.
These graduation cheers interrupted by gunfire. And tonight, police have the alleged gunman in custody, 19-year-old Amari Pollard.
It's wrong that extreme officials are pushing hateful bills, targeting transgender children, terrifying families, and criminalizing doctors. I was getting out of the car to go in the city hall, and there were these two well-dressed men standing in a corner. The light changed. They kissed each other and went in different directions. One went to the Pomp building, one went to the Hercules building. And I'd never seen that before. I looked at my dad. He looked back at me and said, it's simple. They love each other. It's simple. And to me, it's that simple. It's that straightforward.
Whole team of my life. You ain't got the check, no. It's giving bossy. Rick, hey, lay, shake it, shake.
These are our kids.
So medical affirmation begins when the patient says they're ready for it. So that could be a kiddo who is just starting puberty and panicking because they're getting breast buds or their penis is getting bigger and busier and they're worried about all kinds of masculine changes. And that way, puberty blockers, which are completely reversible and don't have permanent effects, are wonderful because we can put that pause on puberty. It's like if you were listening to music, you put the pause on and we stop the blockers and puberty would go right back to where it was. The next note in the song just delayed that period of time.
These are our neighbors.
What's the youngest patient that you've operated on?
The youngest patient I've done vaginoplasty on is age 16.
Do you worry that minors just don't understand enough about themselves? They're not neurologically developed enough yet to make permanent life-altering decisions?
Absolutely not.
White supremacy is a poison. It's a poison running through it. It really is.
From the Bronx, 2 young children, one just 11 months old, the other 3 years old, are dead this afternoon.
Number 2.
Police say the 2 boys were stabbed to death last night. Their mother, now in police custody.
The idea we still allow semi-automatic weapons to be purchased is sick.
When he fought back, the victim was stabbed in the chest.
Her bill would expand the state's definition of child abuse and neglect to include parents
who do not affirm their child's gender identity or sexual orientation.
There's an investigation also in place that is not only, from a social worker, but there's also a police investigation before we make the decision that there is going to be a CPS charge.
What could the penalties be if, the investigation concludes and it's concluded that a parent is not affirming of their LGBTQ child? What could the consequences be?
Well, we first have to have an investigation. It could be a felony, it could be a misdemeanor, but we know that a CPS charge could harm, your employment, could harm your education.
So who is this Elizabeth Guzman? Well, Elizabeth Guzman came to this country not so long ago from Peru as a single mother. Now, rather than wait a while, maybe spend a few generations here before telling you how to raise your children in America, she's decided to get right to it and completely change child rearing in this country in a way that would never be tolerated for a second in the country from which she comes.
Below me.
But in this country, according to Elizabeth Guzman, you have to affirm your child's sex change or else you're going to prison and the state will raise your kids. Now you gotta think, maybe they've wanted this for a while. What would this mean? Well, it would mean fewer intact families. It would mean people like Elizabeth Guzman make the decisions, the meaningful decisions within your house. It means less resistance from you. It means more powerful them. What it doesn't mean is that Elizabeth Guzman will be protecting your kids. She doesn't even claim this law will protect your kids. Instead, she acknowledges the whole point is to, quote, educate parents. Right.
Tucker, in particular, seems fixated on this anti-queer panic.
Yeah, I think that there is a subsector of adults within these organizations.
There's nothing sexualized about it, but there's nothing sexualized about it. There's nothing sexualized about it, but
noticing it, they tell us, is an attack on the LGBT community. Yesterday, NBC brought on its law enforcement expert, by the way, a former assistant director of the FBI, to warn viewers that anyone who complains about the sexualization of children will be punished by the legal system, will be sued into bankruptcy and destroyed. Watch this.
Tucker Carlson, let's get it out. Let's get it out at trial. Let's expose it for what it is, name it and shame it. He's a consumer of these people, and those people should face civil consequences from the victims.
It's cruel. It's callous. Not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids. It's wrong.
Who's going to come up with all the money? Malola.
First, recognize it's a crisis. And, just how we found, is it 14 or 17 trillion for COVID? The money must be there somewhere.
We have already managed to attract attention and have cooperation with such giants of the international financial and investment world as BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs are already uniting our history of freedom with your enterprises. We are waiting for patriots. And everyone can become a big business by working with Ukraine in all sectors, from weapons and defense to construction, from communication to agriculture, from transport to IT, from banks to medicine. And I believe that freedom must always win.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through.
Oh, degrading China.
Martin Luther King was about the biggest traitor to black people in modern day history.
And where do we stand now with the status of this report?
So what the Congressional Black Caucus is calling for now is for the FBI to set up a meeting between members of the CBC and the people that wrote the document, because nobody can account for this. I mean, in my opinion, just to cut to the chase, I don't believe black identity extremists exists.
You know what it is. Let me tell you something, man. Let me tell you something. Bob Marley was considered great because the white man sold his records around the world. Right. Martin Luther King is considered great in America because the white man used integration to wipe us out as a people.
And I believe that the FBI should retract the document and should send out a document throughout law enforcement saying that black identity extremists do not exist.
They gonna burn this bitch to the ground, okay?
They gave no information to us as to how they came up with that category. And to me, what they really need to be concerned about is white identity extremists. Mm-hmm. But that seemed to mystify them.
Okay.
America allowed this to happen because these idiots, these Europeans have miseducated our people. Too black, too strong. Too black, too strong. Too black, too strong.
Are we hearing about BIE concerns from any local law enforcement or other agencies other than the Bureau?
No. I mean, basically, you know, that document cites organizations from many, many years ago, and it cites...
Revolution has come. Remote sisters in jail. Pigs are going to catch hell. We rock the pack to say freedom or death. And we mean it to the last breath. And we mean it to the last breath. Our streets. Our streets.
It's organizations from many, many years ago, and it cites the 3 or 4 incidences in which African Americans were involved in killing law enforcement officers. And ironically, the only individual that was connected to an organization was the guy that committed the murders in Baton Rouge, and he was connected to Sovereign Nation, which is a white organization.
After shots were fired, Wallace led officials on a 56-hour-long manhunt. He was eventually found hiding with guns in a treehouse in Georgia with ties to a pro-black paramilitary organization.
I'm from Earth, and I live in my body.
Friends, family, and fellow members of the group Rise of the Moors filed into the courthouse and said last weekend's hours-long armed standoff on I-95 was nothing more than a miscommunication and overreaction by police.
Obviously, that's what it is when you're in a place where there's no crime and police need something to do. You know what I mean? I don't want to take cats out of the trees for the rest of my life, so if I get something excited, I'm going to run over there and blow it out of proportion.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Woo!
Condemn anti-Asian hate crimes. Bring us up to date on that bill.
The NYPD did update us on some numbers this morning. From January 10 till today, there's been a reported 22 Asian hate crimes so far this year. Comparing that to the same time last year when there was just 0.
Condemn anti-Asian hate crimes. Bring us up to date on that bill.
Sure. Actually, this resolution was sponsored by me and then Senator Kamala Harris in the Senate.
That's why today's vote is so important. Congressmember Grace Meng's COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act would help improve our hate crime response by creating a new position at the U.S. Department of Justice to better track and address COVID-related hate crimes and incidents.
Pretty much ends the violence at that moment. But look at just how disgusting this is to watch. The looting has gotten...
The FBI is committed to combating hate crime and seeking justice. If you've been a victim or witness to a hate crime, call 1-800-CALL-FBI.
And I'm so excited that just last month, President Biden signed a new executive memorandum that contained many pieces of my legislation, like those mentioned.
But this shows the nefarious mindset of the Communist Party of China to take advantage of a worldwide crisis like COVID.
Basically condemning anti-Asian discrimination and violence. It also encouraged the federal government to collect more data on hate crimes so we could get a clearer picture of what was happening to and with the Asian community around the country.
Is our lowest income communities and our communities of color.
And I feel your pain as a non-white person.
Innocent men, women, children hung by a noose from trees, bodies burned, drowned, castrated, lynched for simply being black. Nothing more. Hard to believe, but that's what was done. And some people still want to do that.
Bobby Kennedy Jr., doing well. He's at 19%. Hasn't really gotten that much out there. I mean, and I'm starting to hear more and more talk about him. Are we going to actually have a challenge here?
Please have a seat. Please have a seat.
I'm trying not to laugh, Joe.
And Joan Shanghai, I'm going to pronounce her, Shanga Koala.
I'm trying not to laugh, Joe.
Shanga Koala.
And the reality is this.
It was a crazy project from the beginning, and they ended up doing just the opposite. And now the same people are back in Washington in the Biden White House, the exact same neocons who, had been ostracized and exiled after the war in Iraq, that he may have had weapons of mass destruction. We invaded the country, and we killed 1 million Iraqis. It's a battle between Shia and Sunni death squads, and we pushed it essentially into a proxy for Iran, which is exactly the foreign policy objective we had not to do for 40 years previously.
We have to address this in a way that is about giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place.
And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring.
Two hate crime bills. One is called the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, and this one would direct the Department of Justice. And that's the No Hate Act, which will improve hate crime reporting and provide resources for states to establish their own hate crime hotlines and resources for law enforcement to improve their hate crime response.
The FBI is committed to combating hate crime and seeking justice. If you've been a victim or witness to a hate crime, call 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip at tips.fbi.gov. Protecting our communities. Together, report hate crimes. Every choice matters. Get yours inside now. Hello?
Allow us to have proper training of law enforcement around this country and elsewhere.
How are you going to respond to people who just say, this is sour grapes?
If they think this is sour grapes, then they don't understand what's going on. Because if we don't look like the community we serve, how can that community trust us?
In Newspeak, the whole notion of goodness and badness will be covered by 6 words. In reality, by only 1 word. Don't you see the beauty of that, Winston?
Did you go to see the prisoners hanged yesterday?
No, I was working. The telescreens are bound to show it soon. Very inadequate substitute.
The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
And tonight, in newly released 911 calls, we hear her say that she had an altercation with that mother's children, and then the mother came to her door.
Oh my God, this lady just tried to break down my door. I didn't know what to do. I grabbed my gun and I saw at the door.
The one sitting on the stairs hit my door so hard it was like practically coming off. I had to hold it back.
What you can do? I can do anything I want. Because her dog tried to bite me, so now I'm gonna let her know you got to get rid of that mother. Okay? That's what I want to let her know. Your dog got to go. And if your dog don't go, you go.
Police say Lawrence then fired a single shot through her locked front door, shooting that mother in the chest and killing her.
Domestic violent extremism is our greatest threat right now. And regrettably, we have seen a rise in white supremacy.
Waste my time.
Why don't you kiss my ass?
And because I thought you were a friend.
I hope you kill yourself and die slowly. Yeah. Now tweet that.
Did you make a mistake in sending arms to Tehran, sir?
No, and I'm not taking any more questions.
Mr. President, do you believe Osama bin Laden's denial that he had anything to do with this?